Hello and welcome to the McLaren MP4-12C Buyer's Guide. Well, first off, this Buyer's Guide would literally just be 20 seconds short because the correct answer is to take the McLaren to an authorized McLaren dealership and have them do a full pre-purchase inspection, right? And the reason why I say that is because the correct way to inspect a McLaren is on a lift and you have to remove panels. Now, you've probably seen other videos that have been out there for a long time talking about the process of removing the panels and what to look underneath the panels. But we're gonna be giving you guys a buyer's guide based on you as the buyer, what you should look after, right? So you could ask these questions ahead of time before you sink in the money for a pre-purchase inspection. And then some of the things that you could actually look at, which will give you a kind of preview of how the car is taken care of, or if the owner addressed some common known issues, or if the car itself was even taken care of throughout its ownership history. So let's go ahead and jump in. Okay, one of the most notorious common known issues is yellowing, hazing, and a little bit of condensation issues with the front of the headlights. Now, when I went to go look at this car, one of the owners said that they addressed him, they had him redone, and mine looks pretty good. Again, this car is, over a decade old, but the headlights look good, but that's one of the things you're gonna wanna look at. And to replace the headlights or have them fixed, it's expensive, so you just wanna make sure when you look at a car that the headlights are in good condition. Also, my car came with PPF, and that is really important with any car, especially when you're buying an exotic. Now, when you're looking at PPF, you just want to look at the condition of it. You don't want to see it bubbling, you don't want to see it damaged, you don't want to see it peeling up on the edges. One of the good indicators that PPF is kind of still good is if you look at the edges right here, guys, it's not white and it's not yellowing. So this PPF looks like it still has some good life to it. But those are one of the first things you want to look at when you're looking at the front end of a McLaren. So the windshield is one of those things that people accidentally overlook with their excitement of buying a car. But if you have a windshield that's pitted and has seen a lot of damage, when you're driving in a sunny day or just at the right angle, you're not going to really be able to see out of the windshield, and it's going to take away from the experience. So sit in the car, look out of the windshield, make sure that the windshield is not pitted, meaning it has a ton of little tiny chips and kind of it's been peppered over its duration. With lower cars, they see a lot more of that. So just make sure that your windshield's in good condition, and replacing a windshield on a McLaren is kind of an event. So if you don't have to worry about that, that's one good thing that you don't have to worry. All right, so one of those things, again, you're doing an inspection without a lift, but you could do it. I usually bring a towel. I know it sounds crazy, but I bring a dedicated towel so I could lay down. And what I do is I lay down in the front and the side of the car, and what you're looking for is the air splitter. There's one on the right and one at the left, and you wanna make sure that those are still there and that they're not broken, because that's gonna give you a good indication that people weren't flying through speed bumps or doing some off-roading. Also, while you're under there, look at the front of the car and just make sure that none of the under paneling is scraped, damaged, or anything like that. Because if you see any plastic that's cracked or broken or any evidence of scraping, you want to investigate a little further, because if they did hit something, we're not so much worried about the plastic, but we're worried about suspension parts, frame, and anything else that is really critical to the car. So the car came with 2 keys. You don't want just 1 key. If you have 1 key, there's a problem, and you need to probably address that before you finalize the deal with the car. So you want 2 keys. This is a pretty cool key. There's some carbon fiber in the back. But the cool thing about the key is that you're gonna need it to open up the car, and you wanna make sure that you work the driver's side and the passenger side as far as the door mechanisms. Now, if you're buying a car and it has a soft close upgrade, awesome. If not, having to close these a little hard is kind of normal with the car. But what you wanna see whenever you're opening and closing the door in the car is when you're opening it, right? You want to see the window go down and you want to see it up, and you just want to see a nice movement of the door, nothing crazy. And you kind of just want to inspect the area with the hinge. You want to inspect the area where it's making connection. But one of the things that I accidentally overlooked, and it's okay, it's not a big deal, is the underside of this part of the door is literally, mine's got PPF and some of the PPF is kind of peeling up, but that's okay because it's designed to protect. But this is the part of the car that gets beat up the most. This is the part that sees the biggest damage. Luckily, again, the car had PPF and that is so important. But this is the part that you're gonna wanna make sure that it had PPF or it isn't completely destroyed, because this is one of those parts when you open up the door, if it's too damaged, it's just gonna look bad. But make sure that you inspect that. It's probably one of the most missed things, because you're opening up the door, you look at the interior, and you just kind of miss one of the most used areas that most McLarens know that this is one of the things that you should be looking at. When you're closing the door, the cool thing about it is if it doesn't have soft closed doors, you literally have to close it and it should go up like that. And it's really important for you to be able to make sure that your doors work, your windows work, and everything's just functioning. Now, as far as we're gonna go from exterior to engine and into interior, so we've kind of got a lot of work. One of the things you wanna look at for the wheels is that even for people who are incredibly intelligent, professionals in their field, they miss the most obvious thing. A lot of these cars aren't driven a lot, so they look at tires, they look at the visual aspect, and they're like, they're good to go. You actually have to look at the manufacturer stamp. And what that is, it's a code. And on ours, let's see if we could find our manufacturer stamp here. Let's see, it's actually gonna be right here. And ours says 23, it says 2023. You guys probably can't see it, but that means that these tires are pretty much brand new. I knew that when I bought the car. The owner said these are brand new tires, but you could look at tires and they could look like this and they could be 10 years old and they're no good. That is, don't let them say, oh, they're 10 years old, but they look good. That's not good. Like after 6-7 years, you literally don't, you want to start looking for some new tires. And in this situation, when I bought mine, this was a big selling and buying point, is brand new tires. So you want to make sure that, again, if you're not going to be taking this car to get an inspection, you're going to want to be looking at the brake systems, look at the rotors, make sure that there's no scoring, there's no chips, nothing looks weird. And then sometimes with the stealth wheels, you could actually look at the brake pads and see how much meat they have. But when you go on your test drive, you'll be able to tell the pedal. These cars brake very well, but they also have kind of like an assistance. So it's like you don't have a real connection to the brake feel, but again, you'll know if there's some shuddering or some vibration. So on your test drive, when you hit the arrow button, this should come up. When you deselect it, it should go down. You just want to make sure that there's nothing that is completely leaking or anything like that, because it's important for you guys to make sure that everything is working, because parts on these cars are not cheap. Another thing, you want to make sure that these tail lights are working. You want to make sure that you turn them on, you turn on the flashers. These cars are known to have some LED issues or some condensation issues. So you want to look at the back of the bumper and just make sure everything looks good. On my particular car, everything looked nice. So what I did in the parking lot is I literally used my towel. I'm using a knee pad right now, but I went underneath and I looked at everything underneath here. I looked at the rear diffuser. I tried to look at underneath the car, but here was something that blew my mind that you guys will not see in any other video. So I was in the Army and I have a Surefire tactical light, and in that parking lot in Phoenix, I actually was able to look inside here, because they say you can't look at the engine in these cars, but I was able to flash my flashlight in here and I was able to look around, and this was a selling point for me because it looked clean. It didn't look rusted. I didn't see anything leaking, and I was able to look a lot of the gearbox, a lot of the drivetrain. I was able to search around here. And this was one of those secrets that I found on my own, that I was actually able to look at stuff. Again, it's really hard to look at stuff in this car, but I was able to look at least at this portion of it. All right, to open up the engine hatch area, you have a button right here. You press it and it opens it up. And then to open it up, you put your hand underneath here and you open this up. Now, if you guys notice, I'm missing an engine cover, and I did that on purpose so I could show you guys something. If you look over here, this is a fiberglass engine cover. So you've got 4 pieces of engine cover. You've got a right side fiberglass, a left side fiberglass that's missing. You have this portion right here, and then you have that part with McLaren that just pops up. So I drove my McLaren 9 hours back home. I bought it, I drove it back, and to be honest with you, that was the greatest testament to, you know, a car that if you're worried about if it's working or not. And as I was driving, a couple of times I started seeing a little bit of smoke coming out of the engine, and I freaked out, you know. And so what I did is I was able to track it down while we were going home, and it was this tiny coolant leak, because these cars have these horrible coolant hoses. So here are some coolant hoses that I have replaced on the car already, and they're just clips. And the crazy thing is when I went to go remove them, they weren't very tight. Like, as a matter of fact, when I put the screw flathead in there and I was wiggling it out, you know, this kind of moved around. But here they are. These are a common issue with these cars. These are a 100% known problem, and most of the time these are going to leak. The crazy thing is that the previous owner who sold me the car, when I asked him if he had any issues with this, he said no, but that 9-hour drive literally showed that these, you know, were leaking and that we had to replace them. And I'm pretty sure that there's more than 3 that were leaking, and that would probably have a little bit more. But the cool thing is that I am literally from the JDM world, meaning that I come from owning 90s cars. We'll pan over here so you guys could see. But I come from owning 90s Japanese cars, and we're kind of more grassroots, meaning that if we got to fix something, we fix something. So I got a Napa Auto Parts clamp on there. I put it on there. Leak was perfectly fine, no issues, and the car runs fine. But I just want to give you guys an idea that they sell clamps for like $1,000 for the kit. I'm just going to use some regular clamps and move on with my life, because that's how I roll. It's better to not have a leak with a decent clamp than, you know, wait for a super expensive clamp. So anyways, guys, that's one of the things. While you're here, you're not going to be able to see anything with this engine, as far as, like, you just can't. Luckily, during nighttime, I was shining my light, and what I was able to do, going back to the David hacks here, is I shine my light through these holes right here, and I was just kind of panning around, trying to see if I saw any leaks or anything like that. And when I was buying my car, there were 0 leaks. Now, you cannot check the engine oil with this by using a dipstick. It's all electronic. We have a video how to check the engine oil, so you can look at that. The only thing you can check is you actually can check the coolant, and it's actually an easy check. You unscrew this cap, and then when you unscrew the cap, the coolant should be between the bottom portion of it and the top. So in simple terms, you should just be able to see coolant when you open this up. If you don't see coolant, that ain't good. So we're gonna go ahead and put this back on, and when you put it back on, you'll hear a click and you're good to go. The crazy thing about these cars, guys, is that they're actually really well built, and the mechanics and the logistics behind it is awesome. Let me tell you, I've worked on a lot of cars. I've worked on Ferraris. I've worked on everything. And this really reminds me of a Toyota, as far as how awesome the engineering was done, as far as how logical the approach was. Like, just being able to, I replaced the air filters, and that process was really straightforward. I had a Porsche GT4, and it was a lot more harder than doing this air filter. So we put that down, right? And you're good to go. Now, you're gonna wanna just make sure that the car hasn't been in an accident. Buy the Carfax. Make sure you put the VIN in Google. Just put it in Google and see what comes up. Look at the past ads. I was able to see that this car was in Florida and other places. I was able to look at the old ads and what people said about it, and it's just really good investigative work. But as far as the exterior goes, I really think that's about it, guys. One of the things I also did was I looked inside these ducts, and I just made sure that none of the fins were damaged, that nothing was damaged in here, that everything just looked straight and good. And everything did. So, I mean, really, the exterior portion of it is pretty straightforward. You just, you know, making sure that the car looks amazing, and then you can move to the interior. So a common issue is the AC control units. They glitch out, they die. I think there's a company in the US that fixes them. And the reason why I think they die is because of the way that you have to slam these doors. It just makes sense. Like, you're literally slamming these doors. You have to, and it's an electronic, and over time, I really think it just takes a beating. I don't think it was designed to take that level of vibration. Luckily, mine works really well, but you're gonna wanna go through the whole entire cycle and how to work it and make sure everything works. You're gonna wanna test that before you buy a car. You just wanna go through the whole process. One of the things that I recommend is before you buy this car, read the owner's manual that's online, because I did that afterwards, and this car is very intricate and you have to learn a lot. It's one of the first cars that I ever bought that you actually have to read the whole owner's manual, but I did, and luckily my AC units have worked fine. There's no issues. But guys, I want to show you something real quickly. The carbon fiber package is a must. Like, I could not do that very basic silver. It would be so sad. This is one of the things, the reasons why I wanted this car so bad, is because this carbon fiber package here in the center console looked great. All right, guys. So let's talk about the electronics and the interior of the McLaren. So I've got the Iris 1 system. There's the Iris 1 and the Iris 2. What is that? That's the name of the software in the infotainment center in the center. Everybody says it sucks really bad. I could tell you the navigation is no good, but the rest of it just works like a normal 2012 system. I mean, 2012 to 2015 system. You have Bluetooth, meaning that you essentially have to plug your phone in to the USB port, but then you can play your music, and the sound system is incredible. As far as the audio system goes, it is literally amazing all the way up to 2024 standards. As far as the infotainment center, some people say there's glitches, some people say that you could update it. Right now I have the Iris 1 and it isn't as bad as people say. If you try to use the navigation, I think the system does crash because it just stopped working on me if I use the navigation, but everything else actually works really well. So I have no complaints about that. The rest of the stuff inside, you're gonna have to test it in a good test drive. We'll probably do another video about the buyer's guide, the test drive, what to check and stuff like that. But I really think you guys should watch my video about how to drive a McLaren, because before you get in a McLaren, you should really understand all the buttons and how to navigate it and how to use it. So really doesn't make sense to tell you what to look for in this video if you really don't know how to drive one. Watch that video and then you will understand what needs to work and how it's supposed to work. The only thing I could tell you is that there is a difference between normal and sport as far as the suspension goes, but you have to make sure that the system's on active mode and you have to give it a little bit. Everybody says it's instantaneous, but I've noticed that it needs to settle in about a minute or so. You start feeling everything just really form into normal mode, that comfort mode. And in sport mode, I feel it's a lot quicker. But besides that, guys, I mean, really, you want to go through the infotainment center, you want to play with buttons, you just want to make sure your mirrors work, but everything else is straightforward. But as far as the functions and capabilities of the interior, I really think that's a test drive thing. And I really think you should watch the video how to drive a McLaren so you guys understand how everything should kind of work. Of course, use the mirrors, use the wipers, use all that stuff. You know, just make sure your blinkers work and your hazards work. But really, the interior is pretty straightforward, and you just want to kind of make sure that you go through everything and you press your buttons and make sure that it works. All right, now let's talk about the big ticket items that you've heard about, the rumors, and what you guys are actually scared of. Well, first off, you got to take a moment, take a breath, and realize that these cars are over 10 years old. So whatever goes bad on them and whatever, you know, is going to go bad on them, the data is out, which is great, which means that you will actually get real information, real factual information based on data. And now you actually know what goes wrong with these cars and if they're reliable. I think they're amazing cars. But I am an AC certified master tech. I've owned about 60 cars, and I could tell you that the engineering behind this car is amazing, but it is also one of those things that you want to stay on top of. It's a 600 horsepower V8 with twin turbos, one of the first dual clutches. You literally need to maintain this car. Now, my car has had 10 owners, and you're probably thinking that's a lot. It is not a lot in supercar territory. Ferraris and Lamborghinis, if you go online right now and you look at their Carfax, they have a ton of owners, and the reason why is because they just switch hands constantly. People own them, they put 1,000 miles, and then they move on. It's just part of these cars. But one of the things you want to do is some investigative work and know what services have been done to this car. It is really important that the transmission has been serviced. It's really important that the right coolant is used, and it's important that the oil is changed out and the air filters are changed out. Now, I'm not gonna lie, these cars are probably really driven hard. As a matter of fact, when I went to go see this one, the owner, he showed me what it's capable of, but I was just like, man, this guy must have really enjoyed this car, and it kind of made me a little bit worried. But the great thing about it was that the owner before him did a ton of maintenance. I saw the ad and I was just like, that's a good thing. So you want to have a good history. But what are some of the things you need to worry about? All right, some of the things you need to worry about is the transmission. You want to make sure it shifts right, that it's been serviced, that the filter's been changed out. You also want to make sure that you don't have any oil issues or you have leaks or any coolant leaks. Some of the things you're going to want to do is you should want to make sure your coolant is filled up. You want to make sure that it's not leaking, that you don't see any leaks. And again, it's one of those things that most likely you definitely, to make sure, you're going to have to remove those panels. Now, some of the common things is that the water pump goes out, you have some cam phaser issues, you've had some head issues. You have had a lot of these issues with these cars that I think really go to, you know, it's not easy to check the oil, it's not easy to do an oil change, and it's not cheap. So I think some people might have skipped doing some of that maintenance, and that could have an impact on the car. So I'm definitely going to tell you to watch some of these videos that people literally show you with the panel off, what to look underneath the car. Of course, we can't show you that, but that's one of the things I'm going to put in the description, some of those videos of the guys who are actually removing the panels and telling you what to look when those panels are removed. But I'm giving you this buyer's guide so you guys can come in there and do as much work as you can as the buyer, and then hopefully get a PPI done by McLaren or get a shop to take off those panels and look at it. Either way, I think I absolutely love this car. It is literally one of the first cars that just, it's a supercar, and it's literally reignited my love for cars, and just because of the speed, the design, and how it feels, it's just an incredible car. Well guys, if you have any questions, let me know. We appreciate it. If this video helped you out, press the like button. If you go buy a McLaren and you were like, man, this video really helped me out, we have a member program where you could just do it for a month or 2 months, but you could buy me a coffee, or you could say thank you, because at the end of the day, if these videos help you out, the best thing you could do is send a few bucks our way to tell us thank you so we can help other people out. All right, guys, you take care, stay safe, and we'll talk to you soon.